Welcome to the Lead Well podcast. Around here, we believe leadership shouldn't cost you your peace, your well-being, or the parts of yourself you've worked so hard to reclaim. I'm your host, Trasetta Washington, leadership wellness coach and strategist, and my mission is to give you practical, actionable steps to help you reduce overwhelm, lead more effectively, and build a sustainable rhythm for both your team and your life. Let's dive into today's conversation. Hey leaders, welcome back to the Lead Well podcast. Listen, there is a shift that is happening in leadership right now, and most people don't really have a language for it yet. And the leaders who are feeling it the most are the ones who are in helping professions, right? It is the people in education and academia, in healthcare, nonprofits, those in government agencies that are serving the public, those mission-driven organizations. They are the ones who are feeling it the most. And what is happening is the things that used to work they don't land the same anymore. They're not working the way that they used to work. Those old approaches just are less effective than they used to be. And, I'm not talking about some new leadership trend that is out there. No, this is a deeper leadership evolution that is already underway. Traditional leadership models were built for predictability. They were built for stability, and they created this hierarchy that was very much needed. But in today's reality, we are experiencing the uncertainty that is very chronic, right? It's persistent uncertainty. We're dealing with emotional fatigue because of all of the uncertainty that we've dealt with over the last several years. And now burnout is not just at the top. Burnout is being felt at every single level. And there's this mismatch between the old way of leading and the new way of leading. The old way was very much about commanding and controlling, but it was doing that where we are in a very human-centered crisis that we're dealing with. The things that once drove performance are now the very things that are breaking down trust and the capacity of our teams. And so there are three main shifts that are taking place right now. There's the shift from control to collaboration, the shift from speed to sustainability, and the shift from productivity to well-being. Well, let's talk about the first one, that shift from control to collaboration, right? Control was once seen as competence, but today we often see it showing up as micromanagement, role creep, right? You're doing your job and that of other people, and bottlenecks as it relates to decision making. Now, collaboration, on the other hand, it doesn't mean that there is a lack of leadership there. What that leadership looks like now is there is shared ownership, right? The problem solving isn't only relegated to the manager, the team lead, or the executive, right? There is distributed problem solving. Anyone on the team can contribute to problem solving the things that come up within the organization. And it also means that we've got to create this psychological safety, right? Because in order for people to feel comfortable enough to share their problem solving ideas or to share their innovative idea, they have to feel safe. They have to feel that there is a certain level of trust in order for them to be able to contribute that. And, leaders who are like truly strong leaders recognize that they don't hold all the answers, that they're not the only experts within their team or their organization. What they do is strong leaders create the conditions for their team members to step up, for the answers that to the problems, challenges, and situations that they experience. They create the conditions for those to emerge, not just from them, but from those that are on their team. Let's move into the second shift, that shift from speed to sustainability. Speed, being able to do things quickly, speedily, used to be a signal that you were being efficient and that you were being effective, or the team was, or the company organization was. But now that signals that you're reactive, that there is a chronic urgency and potentially poor decision making. Because if you aren't slowing down enough to weigh the options, now I'm not saying that it's going to depend on the particular situation, how much time you take, but you can't just be continually reactive, because you're much more likely to make poor decisions when you are moving too swiftly without taking an opportunity to weigh the information. It's a balance between having the information, the data that you need, and the speed to deciding and implementing whatever that decision is. The thing about sustainability, rather than the speed, sustainability asks different questions than speed does. Sustainability asks, can we maintain this pace? Right? Speed doesn't question. They're just like, how fast can we go? Whereas sustainability is like, okay, we're going really fast, but can we maintain this? And if we can, what is the human cost to maintain it? And I think it's important to note that slowing down doesn't mean that you are falling behind. It doesn't mean that you are missing out on opportunities, or that you're going to decrease your output or your revenue. Slowing down and thinking about sustainability helps you to choose leadership that is lasting. Now, the last shift, that shift from productivity to well-being, is probably the most prominent one, or the most, do I want to say most important? I'll just go ahead and say the most important one, because it's important for us to recognize. Now, I'm not saying that productivity is going away. That's not what I'm saying. Listen, productivity is my zone of genius, and that is how I got my start in the leadership and coaching space. Productivity is not going away. What I'm saying here is that productivity alone is not enough. It's not enough simply to be productive, because the people who work on your teams are asking these questions they're quietly asking in their mind, hey, can I survive here? They're looking around at the pace. They're looking around at the performance measures. They're looking around at what is being asked of them, and they're asking themselves, can I survive in this environment? Does my manager, does this organization see me as a human being? Or am I just a cog in the machine? It's important for you as a leader to understand that well-being is not a perk. Right? A lot of companies have instituted programs that are designed to assist employees with well-being. And that's great. I'm not saying get rid of your wellness programs. What I'm saying is wellness should not be a perk. It is not a perk. Well-being is actually a performance strategy. In fact, I teach this in my Teamwork Tune-Up workshop intensive. That is the fifth pillar that we talk about, because I don't care what kind of systems that you have in place. I don't care that you're fully staffed. I don't care what kind of resources you have. If your team members aren't well, they are not going to be able to perform. So well-being is an actual performance strategy. Because listen, if your team is burned out, they're not going to be innovative. They're not going to be effective in their collaboration. And they're most likely going to leave. They're not going to stay. They may stay short in the short term, but first opportunity they get, they're going to be out of your organization. They're going to be out of there. And this is crucial because retention is huge. There is a huge cost to poor retention within your organization. Retention, engagement, and culture are all leadership issues. Organizations that ignore these shifts and ignore those elements, they're going to lose trust, which is going to lead them to lose talent, which is then going to lead them to lose momentum, right? It is necessary. It is essential for your organization to stay relevant. This new era of leadership requires leaders to be emotionally aware, to be able to self-regulate and lead with clarity, even when you are under pressure, even when you are under the gun. Leadership is no longer simply operational. It's not just, can you manage the day-to-day operations of your team or your organization and get things done? There is a relational element that is inextricably tied to leadership now. The workforce has changed. We've got 5 generations of people in today's workplace. And each one of those generations has different perspectives as it relates to work and the workplace. And so some of these younger generations are very relational focused. And that requires a different internal skill set than what you may have had to have, or what you would have had to have had during a more hierarchical, authoritative type of leadership system. And that is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the new leadership skill set, right? It's not optional anymore. In fact, emotional intelligence is one of the most requested topics that I get called into organizations to train on, because it is so crucial. Leaders right now are feeling the weight because they're navigating anxiety among their team members. They're dealing with fatigue from this constant change because of all the uncertainty, all the different things that have happened. We've gone through a lot of change globally as a result of COVID, and nationally as a result of the politics of the United States, right? And so we're navigating a lot. They're also having to navigate a lot of conflict that has its roots in stress. Because when you're stressed out, you just don't think clearly. And that leads to conflict. On the other hand, emotional intelligence allows leader to be able to respond to their team members and to situations instead of being reactionary. It allows them to feel the tension, right? Hold that tension without contributing to it, without escalating it, and gives them the tools and the skill set that they need in order to model that steadiness under pressure for their team members. And I say this all the time, your team mirrors you as the leader. And so you have to model what that steadiness under pressure really looks like. Listen, your team is not going to rise above the emotional capacity of its leader. So take a look at your team. Your team is going to reflect your own emotional capacity. So how do you make the shift from where you are right now to adopting these 3 perspective shifts in the workplace without losing your authority? Because listen, I mean, let's just be real. You're probably listening to this and listen to me share, and you might be like, well, if I soften up, I'm going to lose control. But here's the thing. The reason why you won't lose control is because authority doesn't come by force. Authority does not come by force. It comes from trust, consistency, and presence. The interesting thing is leaders who are able to adapt actually get more credibility with their teams and with their colleagues, not less. So it would behoove you to really lean into making these shifts and adapting to the workforce of today. When you make these leadership shifts, it's going to impact your culture, meaning the culture of your team or your organization, right? Because your team and your culture becomes more transparent, more accountable, and you embrace the humanness of the people who make up your team or organization. Then the team itself, your team is going to feel safer. They're going to feel safer to speak up. They're going to be much more clear on what the expectations are. And that is going to lead to them being more invested in the outcomes. Because when they know what's expected and there's the transparency of the why, now they become invested. And I know I've already said this, or a derivative of this anyway. Culture reflects leadership. Always. I can look at the culture of an organization and tell you the leadership style of the person at the helm, because your culture is always going to be reflective of your leadership style. Now, if you're ready to make some of these shifts, I gotta say, the place to start is not with your policies. The shift doesn't start with your policies and procedures. It starts with you. It starts with you as the leader, right? Leaders go first. That means you have to take a look at your patterns, the ways that you typically show up as a leader. Evaluate them. Are there any patterns and beliefs that are outdated? And once you identify those, you got to release them, let them go. That will allow you to lead with self-awareness. Listen, you cannot lead people through change that you yourself haven't processed. Leaders go first. As you think about this leadership shift from control to collaboration, from speed to sustainability, and from productivity to well-being, I want you to be clear about this one thing. This isn't a fad. This isn't a trend. And it's not something that you can opt out of. You can try if you want to, but you're going to get left behind. Organizations are either adapting to this new era of leadership, or you're going to lose people because you've lost the trust. And that losing the people causes you to lose momentum. The thing that makes this so challenging is that making the shifts don't just ask you as a leader to change what you do. It's really asking you to change how you lead. Not only that, but who you are. What is your identity? Who are you while you are leading? And that is exactly the work that I do with organizations. Through keynotes, workshops, and facilitated conversations, I really help leaders and teams to navigate these shifts in a way that is practical, human, and sustainable. We build the emotional intelligence, clarity, and leadership capacity that is required in order for you to lead well in today's reality. Not yesterday's, but today's reality, and doing it without burning people out in the process. So if your organization is feeling the strain of these outdated leadership models, or maybe you know that your leaders are being asked to lead in ways that they never were trained for, well, I would love to support that work. You can learn more or submit a speaking or facilitation inquiry using the link that I'm going to place inside of the show notes, because the future of leadership isn't louder. It isn't faster. The future of leadership is much more intentional. And honestly, it's already here. So you have a choice to make. Are you going to shift into this new era of leadership? Or are you going to maintain the way that you've always led and become obsolete? As always, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And until next time, lead well so you can live well.